Okay. Are you, oh, Kevin, you're still doing stuff, right?
I am. So, hey, everybody, we're just about a minute away. So I wanted to let you know a few housekeeping details. One, we're being recorded. So this is an active discussion. If you do not want your image to be captured, you're welcome to keep your camera off. It's up to you. And if you don't want your voice to be captured, you can use the chat, and either the panel or I will be happy to repeat your question so that the people listening to the recording can hear it, and everybody is aware of what's being asked. Also, we have the captions turned on, so we encourage everyone who wants to use those to use them. And last but not least, and if you need to know how to do that, it's just the caption button at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. If you don't see that button, it's probably because your screen is slightly smaller. So use the more button with the 3 dots and the captions options on the menu that pops up. Last but not least, this is a discussion session. So we encourage comments, questions, sharing resources, all that stuff in the chat. So we would appreciate this to be lively. And let's see here. Let's kick this off by introducing our panel. We have our esteemed group from Serbia. So we, let's see, the session is called ChatGPT as a Double-Edged Sword or a Game Changer, Revolution in the ESL Classroom, with Lena, Tica, I'm apologizing in advance if I do not pronounce your names correctly, Ivana Krsmanović, and Jenny Lemper. I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can introduce yourselves more fully.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jenny Lemper, and I'm a teacher at College of Alameda at Peralta Community Colleges. And I'm also English fellow in Serbia, working through the U.S. State Department. I've been here for now 2 years, and this is how I met Lena and Ivana. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Let us just unmute ourselves. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kevin, for such a nice introduction. Thank you, Jenny. We consider you one of our group, or you can consider us being one of your group of teachers, dedicated teachers here. Thank you, everybody, for joining this session. And we'll share a couple of things we did. Jenny, do you want me to share the presentation, or are you sharing?
I'll share it now.
Okay.
In a messy.
Yeah, so we can see. The title of our presentation will be in the first slide, and we can get going.
Okay, so as Kevin said, this is about ChatGPT, and especially with the ESL classroom. And I'm going to read the introduction to our presentation and workshop discussion today. Welcome to our discussion on incorporating ChatGPT in the language and ESL classroom. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, ChatGPT is like the classroom pet that never sleeps, never gets tired, and never stops learning. ChatGPT is an advanced AI language model that can generate human-like responses to text-based prompts. Think of it like a really smart, really chatty robot that can hold a conversation with you on any topic you choose, from weather to politics to the meaning of life itself. So you may be wondering, did we write this? No, we didn't write this. Actually, ChatGPT wrote this introduction to our workshop. So to get started, how do you feel right now about ChatGPT? I'm assuming that you've either already used it, or your students have been using it, or you're just here to learn about it. So what's your general feeling about ChatGPT? You can put it in the chat box. Terrified. Great. And yeah, when I first learned about it, I felt like it was icky. I had the similar feelings, terrified. Interesting, cautiously optimistic. Nervous, yeah, I had that feeling. Amy Marshall, I let you say you love it, and I think that's you're on the same mindset as Ivana and Lena, and they'll share in a minute why they think that way. Uninformed, so that's a good place to be right now, because Lena and Ivana are going to show us around ChatGPT. So
Okay.
I felt, you know, I did feel, like I said, icky about it. And then I did a little bit of research about it and how it could be used as a language learning tool. And so I started to get a little bit less scared of it. And then, of course, learning from Lena and Ivana started to change my opinion about it. So can you guys share your explorations with ChatGPT with us? I'm going to stop sharing so you guys can share with us.
Okay, thank you, Jenny, for introducing us. I would like to think of us not as ChatGPT researchers, as you said, but as ordinary users of ChatGPT. And as you said, we've been using it for a while. I think that the first time I signed up was back in January, when I could see all those titles, newspaper articles predicting doomsday for education, like the end of homework, school, college essays, dead, and so on and so on. And I tried it, of course, out of curiosity. And believe it or not, the first time I tried it was for doing my son's homework. That was some maths problem. It was simple for primary school, but I entered the prompt and it spilled out the answer in a millisecond. Actually. And at that point, I remember myself being scared. I could see in chat box, scared, nervous, cautious, and so on. And I was like, well, maybe this sees an end of homework, an end of essay writing era, and so on. But luckily, I have my good friend here, Ivana, with me, who was more like optimistic than me at that point, and she was like, oh, we can try use it in our classroom and so on. So Ivana, can you share your initial reaction to ChatGPT?
Yeah, my first experience was very similar. I was really curious to see what is ChatGPT thing can do for us. And at first, as all you wrote it, I was very cautious about it, and I tried to just provide certain prompts and try to test the application, the tool. And in a couple of minutes, I had a feeling I was talking to a person, and I'm not sure whether
the real person.
Yeah, because you have this response, like you say thank you or please, or
and
you
it
go,
answers.
It answers, yeah. If you're not satisfied with my reply, I can improve
And
it.
It says, I'm sorry about it.
It apologizes. So for a second, I thought there is a person behind this ChatGPT, and there's something, you know, something unusual happening. But in fact, my first time in need was when we had our winter intensive here in Serbia, in our access program. And we had to write a ton of lesson plans for our winter intensive in a week. And we already had the idea. The idea was to prepare and make a website with our students. And me, as a language teacher, basically, I knew what I wanted our students to do, but I needed some, you know, help in terms of how to plan the stages and which resources we should use and how to involve all the students and everything. And then I went to the GPT, and in seconds, I got a complete lesson plan, resources, things you need to introduce. Yeah, because sometimes you have students who are more advanced and more digitally literate than we who teach languages are, obviously. So I was impressed with the work. Yeah. And I finished my boring, dull administrative work in a second. Of course, I needed to do certain adjustment to the lesson plan.
Yeah, it always needs human touch. And I could see it in this chat box that someone said it's a huge time saver. And that's really our first point here. It really saves time when you have to do some administration tasks.
So
Yeah,
can you
alright.
guys show us around
Yeah.
it? And
Yes.
for all of us who are too scared to use it, so still.
Yes, for sure. Yes, for sure. But with this initial question, Jenny, you asked, I see from these replies and these comments in the box that people have already tried out this tool. Let me just find my.
Probably all of us have already signed up to ChatGPT.
Hmm?
As Ivana tries sharing her screen, there is one fun fact about ChatGPT users. For example, Netflix needed 3.5 years to reach 1 million users, Facebook around 8 months, and so on. And believe it or not, ChatGPT needed only 5 days to reach, can you share it? To reach
I'm doing
1
my
million
best.
users. And that number is growing on a daily basis. And I think that not a day passes by that I haven't used it for various activities. Okay.
You see my screen?
Yep.
Do you see
it.
this? ChatGPT
Yes, we
yet?
do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, fantastic. So these are my previous chats here. Okay, a lot of them. And you see a number of it in English, some, of course, in Serbian. So we tried it out, and of course, it's easy. You've already tried it. If we want a simple task to be done, for example, we can ask a question. Can you provide a lesson plan, let's say, for B level, let's say, B level.
Yeah.
So guys, that's like an intermediate level for us in the US.
On equity.
Okay.
Okay. So you see,
Really
Just
in
in-
seconds. So you can see the title, objective, level, duration, materials that should be used. And then you have actually a timetable of activities.
if we don't like this, we can adjust or rephrase or improve the response by, for example, can you do the same thing? Sorry, can you do the same thing? But in a table. So it also saves time by providing
Your
different
table.
formats, yeah. So you can just copy and paste and finish your administrative work in seconds. Of course, if the demand for GPT, if there's a lot of traffic, sometimes if you don't pay, of course, you need to wait for
This is a
some
free
time. This is a
version.
free version, so we didn't pay for the upgraded version. We are just using this. You can upgrade it here, of course, and pay $20, I think, per month.
It's $20
Yeah.
a month.
So obviously you can start with lesson planning and then move to more complex tasks. We'd like to show one with something Lena tried.
Yeah.
I need to copy.
This is more teacher oriented. The first thing that we showed, like lesson planning. You can also ask for some specific task like reading comprehension to provide you with a text on a certain topic and provide a matching activity below or true or false activity.
So what we did here, we asked
And this is
ChatGPT,
students-oriented.
yes, to provide feedback on the motivational letter a student wrote. So we just copied and pasted here, and so we get a response very
Okay.
quickly. Yeah, so the feedback is instant, obviously. We just commented today that there is a big difference between this ChatGPT feedback you get and Grammarly, which is also an excellent tool. I prefer Grammarly because I can see the corrections. I can see what the tool is implying that should be changed or corrected.
Yeah, and if you use ChatGPT, you have to compare your letter, for example, and the letter that Chat gave you. But I like ChatGPT because it can also paraphrase your sentences if you need that. And when it comes to feedback, it can actually, it hasn't done this it this time, but it can actually provide you with the real feedback. As a teacher could write a feedback, like your first introductory sentence is not correct, and so on and so on.
I could, of course, you've seen the basic functions of this tool, and probably, I mean, you have all used it, but I've made a couple of photos with actual tasks. So I gave a prompt here to ChatGPT to write a 150-word pros and cons essay. So you see that it provides responses quickly, and it's nicely put here in bullet points, so it's very easy to read and go through the details.
We can't see that. Just so you know, we can't.
You don't see that?
We don't see this pros and
Okay.
cons thing.
Okay. Sorry.
Share again.
Thank you for letting me know. Okay, you see it now? This is our pros and cons essay example. Okay, so providing ideas. This is important because sometimes students struggle with argumentative essays and trying and brainstorming and critical thinking, sometimes with topics that are familiar with. Otherwise, it's very difficult for them to think out of the box and search for solutions for these essays. This is also an example of lesson plan, but we wanted ideas for, was this on ideas?
Clear instructions on how to write a lesson plan.
Okay, yeah, this is like teacher training thing a little bit. So you can, if you're not familiar with stages of certain teacher work, motivation or stages, how to plan your lesson, how much time to dedicate to certain parts of your lesson, you can ask ChatGPT, and of course the algorithms do their job and you find the right solution and you get the answers, of course. The prompt was here, can you provide short exercises for vocabulary learning? And you can also get ideas, basically, in which way to go, how to think. You can use word associations or sentence completion or deal with
close activity.
Yeah, synonyms, antonyms, a lot of practice. So if you are struggling with ideas, or you don't have enough time, or you need to improve your teaching or lessons, or to provide a specific approach, you can use ChatGPT to search for another ideas. Of course,
grammar exercises as well, and explanations of grammar.
If you know well your class, the group of people you are teaching, it becomes easier. You just need to write your prompt well, or to supply segments such as, can you provide me with an expert opinion, or can you act as a consultant, or can you, so you need to provide a very detailed prompt and give exact details about what you want it to do.
The better the prompt, the better the answer you get, actually. So in a few years, probably we'll have a new profession like prompt designer instead of teachers.
Prompt writer. A prompt writer would be probably a cool job.
Profession.
And of course, the last one, I think this is the last slide in a row. So B2 level exercise with word formation. So you see how ChatGPT generates chunks of speech or sentences, which can be used as vocabulary practice. And it's nice that you can use it as it is. You just copy paste and go through it. You can dedicate more time to basically reviewing what the tool did and not just searching for, because I think we can it's very reliable if we're talking about levels of English, definitely. So if you need a certain help in terms of how to find adequate language for your group of students, I think this ChatGPT is doing great job. Okay,
so can I interrupt you guys really quick? We have a good question if anyone has a syllabus policy regarding using OpenAI. have you guys, Ivana and Lena, thought about adding anything about AI in your syllabus? You guys write syllabus? I don't even know if you write syllabi, because I don't here. Do you guys use? You
Yeah,
guys
we have to
syllabi?
write it here. We have to write it here.
Mhm, okay.
There is no policy right now.
Mhm.
No policy about it. Yeah.
That's actually been my my question to Polly, because I'm wondering, is our community college going to create some kind of standard, kind of how we have a standard for plagiarism? Are we going to have set rules that we're all
some
going to conform
point.
to? So that's a really good question, and I'm also wondering about that question. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
now there are two sides, like one side, expert opinion, like Elon Musk and Bill Gates, they are against using ChatGPT, and there is the other side that is totally for
Yeah.
the use of ChatGPT, and we are just ordinary users. What should we do? Right now, I think it's not a question whether we are for or against it, but just to somehow introduce ourselves to it, to try to adapt to this new technology, to try to use it.
But I think, sorry, if I may jump in, I think we should divide in terms of using GPT in education. We should divide things that this tool can produce in terms of its originality, and things we should do that are not that original. In terms of, if you need to do paperwork and you need somebody to type your sentences, starting with the objective of this lesson is to introduce. Basically, what do you do with all lesson plans and or all syllabi you have when you're creating something new? You never start from scratch. You always use your own materials, and then you improvise, you put ads on,
Or you Google for some ideas.
Yeah. So sometimes you need help in terms of, okay, first stage of the processes and so on and so on. So I think we should think in terms of dividing administrative work, brainstorming, things that ChatGPT can provide for teachers and educators that are obviously part of the work, like doing paperwork or doing writing, or even providing feedback. We might talk about that more and go deeper in that. But syllabus, basically creating a syllabus, it's like sometimes you need to start from somewhere and build on it. And that's where this ChatGPT can be useful, because it's designed to work from millions of books based on algorithms. So it has some kind of material that's proven to be okay. Of course, so far has proved to be okay.
Okay, we have a nice comment here in chat box from Amy. If you're concerned about student papers, Turnitin has developed an AI writing detector that currently can identify 97% with a low false positive. I think that, Jenny, you can share your experience with that student. You share that to us. Before that, I can say that since Ivana and I have been using it for a while, we can somehow, without any detectors, we can recognize that something is plagiarism, that it was written by ChatGPT. For example, we were writing one, it was a project proposal, and I sent to Ivana one paragraph that was written actually by ChatGPT. I revised it a little bit, but it was written by ChatGPT, and Ivana said, oh, I can so see that you used ChatGPT for this, because it provides somehow generic answers, and you can see it. If you use it for a while, you can see it. And of course, this detector, this is like, we also have it on one slide. We mentioned that.
Okay, more comments. Yeah.
And Jenny, you
can share yours.
So I just want to share, and maybe some of you have experienced this, where you use Turnitin to check for plagiarism, and it's also showing what percentage of your students' work is potentially or most likely AI generated. And so I my students are using some kind of help because they're, I don't know, they're like medium level language learners and they don't have high vocabulary. And when I see these really amazing sentences that I couldn't even write, because even though I'm a native speaker, I'm not able to access all this advanced vocabulary. When I see my English learners not having any mechanical errors and using very advanced vocabulary, it makes me question, and I don't want them to think they have to use that kind of language. I want them to feel comfortable in the stage of development that they're in, and to practice thinking in English, because that's the whole point of their being an ESL, is to develop their English. And I had a student, I found that she had AI in her paper most likely, and I asked her about it, and she said she was using translation software. I said, oh, well, maybe you should, just not use as much translation software and just try to use the language that you have, your English that you actually have. And then another thing, we had a brainstorming free writing activity, which you think is really just, there's no preconditions about mechanical errors or anything, like they can just do whatever. And her paper showed us 100%, or her work showed us 100% generated from AI. And I asked her about it. I said, oh, can you just redo this with just your own thinking? And she dropped my class. And so this is something, and this just happened this week, and I was really surprised, and maybe she was offended. And so I don't know, really, honestly, and especially in terms of equity, like I think we're going to have to, figure out as a group of educators how to deal with these situations, because I feel like I'm alone in trying to figure out what to do. Should I allow her to use AI, or so I'm thinking actually that we have to integrate AI in our classes, our ESL classes, to have students use it as a tool for specific things, like checking their thesis, like seeing if their thesis is, compare their thesis with the AI generated thesis, use it to check mechanical errors, as Ivana and Lena were showing, to compare theirs with the AI generated one, to show them ways to use it that are not becoming what might be considered plagiarism. So that's all I'm going to say right here, and I'll hand it back to you guys.
Yeah, if I may add, Jenny, the thing, I mean, you recognized, basically you saw that your student wasn't able to write that kind of essay because her progress, her skills, her knowledge is familiar to you from your classroom setting. So I suppose if we as educators are well aware of how able our students are, how competent they are, how fast they're progressing with their learning, we can recognize whether any AI has been used or not. So I suppose Lena, you wanted to say something?
Well, I wanted to say that the things that we've been showing were more teacher oriented, but now we switched to the topic of more students oriented topics, and how they can use it for their advancement, for their development, language development. And the first thing that comes to our mind that is that we have to make sure that our students know that we know use AI, and that we know when they use AI for their
assignments
and essays and so on.
Yeah, but it is also a question of digital literacy, I suppose, of teachers and students as well. So probably if we let them know that we can use it and that we can recognize when things have been plagiarized, we can use it as a teaching field, as an assignment to show them how not to do that. Because in real life circumstances, if you're writing a research paper or you need a cover letter, it really has to be personalized. Cover letter really has to be personalized. You need to show, if you're writing a personal story and putting your details and writing motivation for a certain position, I mean, ChatGPT cannot help you. It can provide probably guidelines for how to structure your assignment, what to put in your introduction or in body or in conclusion.
And it can revise your grammar, style, spelling after you write down that.
Yeah. So somebody wrote here, authentic assignments. So we are all about that. I totally agree. Yeah. So authentic assignments might be the right response, and also getting to know your students well, getting to know their abilities, what they're capable of, how fast they progress, what kind of language they can produce in certain contexts, and so on. I think that's the best thing because for sure, we can expect more of these tools in future. We can expect improved version of ChatGPT. I heard there's ChatGPT 4 coming.
That's image-based, not just text-based, but image-based, that it will.
So probably this will be very powerful tools in future, and
we have to adapt.
You
remember when we had COVID pandemic that we all had to adapt to online teaching, and I guess we were all scared at some point. But in months, we all managed to adapt. And now even some of us maybe love online teaching more than face-to-face teaching. That's questionable, but maybe.
Yes. Yes, I just wanted to say, because Jenny mentioned equity and her students and her teaching context. Of course, we have to mention equity in terms of ChatGPT being also a tool that can provide space for non-judgmental space for learners, because if you are not competent enough and you are shy or reserved or you are anxious to use language, or you're afraid of
fellow
teachers' feedback, or you come from non-native speaking family, ChatGPT can be a useful tool for you to practice, to provide
be programmed to use simplified language, and it can work, it can function in your native language. We tried Serbian and it's really cool. It even recognizes Cyrillic.
So in terms of equity, if we have all equal access to internet and we can use ChatGPT, I suppose,
we must make sure that all our students have access to it if we plan to use it in our classroom. There was one great idea in chat here, how to use ChatGPT. Can you just scroll up? How to use ChatGPT in classroom. This one is cool. You can have ChatGPT write a paper, then ask your students to correct it and write about why it lacks the human voice. I actually use it more for fun activities, like let's ask ChatGPT to write a poem on something, and then we compare these poems, because it can provide a poem in a style of a certain author. Messages here.
A lot of comments. Thank you for commenting and writing here. Okay, to develop the students' expressive skills, we require video response to ChatGPT is not there yet. Okay, maybe while we are
not there yet. Yet is a keyword here.
Yet, right. Okay, so you see on this slide some of the ideas we listed here. Obviously, you're aware of the things we can do with ChatGPT, like in administration things, with the reading skills, of course. In class or for self-learning, self-assessment, also writing skills, how to improve writing skills. So you see all the ideas we listed here: editing, proofreading, exam ideas, prompts, and so on. Okay, for equity also, if you're writing exam papers, exam questions for writing, for example, and you want ChatGPT to generate questions that will be okay for all the students, no matter what their race or gender, whatever. It can be a cool thing to use to generate unbiased questions, obviously.
Okay, we have one question here in chat. I'm curious if two people separately ask ChatGPT the same question, does it give the same response? No, it always gives different responses.
Sometimes you also, depending on your prompt, for example, I wanted to investigate whether the ChatGPT knows who my husband is, because he is a musician, and you can find information on him on the internet. And once I got information, we don't know who the man is. And first it was a positive answer, and then I got the answer, I'm not sure, I don't have the information. And if you try to provide answers from two computers, I think you get different
answer, definitely. And can you go to the next slide here? Okay, there was a question about biases in the chat box. Okay, and that's one of the challenges that we listed here. And actually, I asked ChatGPT, are you biased? And it said, no way. But it is biased somehow. It lacks emotional intelligence. This is when it comes to challenges. There are, of course, some security and privacy concerns. Sometimes it's inconsistent. And we mentioned that upgraded version costs around $20 a month.
Yeah.
Right now, it will change definitely. But there are still some benefits that we all mentioned. Quick responses, time saving, that's like the biggest benefit here.
And follow-up response, which allows you to modify your work, whatever you do, have a follow-up response.
Thing. It's really interactive. If you're not satisfied with its answer, you can modify it. Yeah, you can modify it.
Jenny, would you like to add something here at this point? When we
if you guys don't know Cynthia Albee, she did a presentation, I think, for the community colleges. And she made a really good point that we must prepare our students to partner with AI, or we are putting them at a disadvantage. Her point was that AI will be used in whatever potential careers that they go into after college and university. And so we need to integrate that into our classes as a skill for them. So I thought that was a really interesting point that she made. And she did also mention that for equity reasons, it does level the playing field for people with special needs or who are neurodiverse, and definitely for language learners. I know that my ESL students, they have a kind of a big freak out when they have to move from ESL classes to transfer level classes, and suddenly they're in a class where they might be the only language learner in the classroom, or one of the very few, and it's really intimidating for them. And some of them lose motivation and may not continue with their education. So I think there's a lot of potential for ChatGPT and other AI to, help support them in that transition. And we already discussed that it also can help them with the mechanical errors and such, things like that. So I think there's a lot of potential for equity for language learners and other folks who needs that extra support in their education.
I wanted to add something, Jenny, for those students who feel left out and basically have this equity problem. They're not using technology much, so they feel they're, left behind. I think that a teacher has a cool role there. If we as teachers show them and introduce this AI tool to them and show them how to use it properly, okay, we can somehow bridge that gap and that digital divide that might be causing their equity issue.
Yeah, I was reading chat box, and Amy asked how accurate is the translation. The translation that ChatGPT offers is better than Google Translate at this point, actually. And
It's useful.
this is no.
Properly configuring. Maybe we wanted Jenny now to ask our not panelists, but people who are listening and sharing ideas and commenting here to engage if we have time to. Kevin is also probably taking care of our time
We do
frame.
have some time. We do have some time. We really wanted to hear. We've been hearing how you're using it in your classes already, but if anyone would like to raise their hand and speak out orally, feel free to share some things, how you're using it in your classes or your concerns, or put more ideas in the chat box, how you imagine using it in your classes. And then that will be the end. Or do you have questions for us?
Okay, I think we have Lena. Is that the name?
Yeah.
Lena.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for this presentation. Unfortunately, I missed a little bit at the very beginning, but I want to share. I'm a brand new user. I just started using it like a week ago. And what I wanted was to make sure that I wanted to see it as a resource, but it was something very silly. I wanted to create a lesson where I didn't want to do the banking style education, right? I didn't want to tell the students, this is what the present perfect progressive is. I wanted to provide them with an activity where they would do their own productive struggle. And sorry, my camera is not on. So then what I did was I went to ChatGPT because I was in a hurry and I wanted to plan my lesson real quick. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, show me a conversation with present perfect progressive. So ChatGPT produced this conversation. So I quickly copied the conversation, placed it on a Word document, and then I in bold, I put the sentences in the present perfect in bold and the expression of time in red. I took it to the classroom. And I said to students, because we had already learned present, have you ever had a conversation? We had learned about simple past, had conversations about it and all that. So we reviewed the simple past, the habits, used to and would, and then have you ever? And then I said, okay, now you're gonna take a look at this conversation and you're going to figure out, there you go, there I am. And you're going to figure out two things. Look at these sentences in bold and the expressions in red, of time in red, and then tell me, when do you use this? And what is the structure? So use and form, right? So they were in the group trying to figure it out. So their own productive structure, they said, we're confused. I said, oh, good, confusion is good. That means that your brain is working. And then I said, okay, how can I help you? Well, what do you mean? I can't figure out the use. I said, well, look at the expressions in red. It was like lately. And I should have changed it because it said, oh, you look fit. What have you been doing lately? And the person answered, oh, I have been working out for 6 months now. I wish I had changed it because I didn't want to focus on body, but I was in such a hurry that, so one of the students said, well, I recognize the word now. So it seems that this is still happening because we're talking about the past, right? And the other student said, oh, but I studied in the past because it says for 6 months, but it seems that they're still doing it. That was the conversation they were, and I said, okay, so use. Now, how about form? What do you recognize? And they said, and one of the students said, I recognize the progressive I see here doing and working out. I said, okay, all right. What else do you recognize? Oh, I also recognize the present perfect. I mean, the perfect, they didn't say present, the perfect, which is the have been and have been in both sentences. So I wrote the words like progressive, perfect, now, still going on, studied in the past. So I started writing those things on their little handouts. And I said, well, you figured it out. I didn't have to teach it. That's productive struggle right there. That's great learning. And then I went to the board and then we summarized what we had learned. I started with the conversation produced by ChatGPT, which saved me a lot of time because I was in a hurry. So that's what I did. And I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you, Elena, for sharing. Did I, Eliana? Sorry.
Eliana, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. We're about out of time, and we want, if you guys have any other questions or you want to continue this conversation, to include it in the Padlet, which I think, Kevin, there is a Padlet for each workshop, right?
We
Available.
did that in the past, but we could create one for this particular thing if you wish. We just, last year we had to pay money, and this is a conference that's all volunteers. We didn't have a Padlet account to create a board for every session. We have over 60 sessions, so.
Yeah. So I think we had a good conversation
Yeah,
here.
but we could start a Google Doc or something, and there's a lot of resources out on the
Mhm.
web, and you can ask ChatGPT itself.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it might be biased, as many people said. I would like to thank all three of you for leading such an amazing discussion. It's very informative. While we were talking, I asked it to help me create a presentation about learning with artificial intelligence tools for my students who are learning how to learn with technology. And it did a pretty good job of coming up with an outline. So we will continue this conversation. There will be more sessions about AI today and tomorrow. So we hope that people will join us. For the meantime, we have a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back with 2 sessions. So please use the program at a glance, and let me put that link in the chat for everyone so that you can find the session that you want to attend at 9 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Serbia time, and every time zone in between. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks for joining
Awesome.
us.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye.